defeat at the hands of the champions leaves the Stags season on the edge. It's not impossible to make the playoffs, but in defeat, it became a whole lot harder. All the little 1% are now adding up to hinder our progress, with Elliot Hewitt, the as yet uncrowned winner of pretty much everyone's Player of the Season award, the latest to be hit by the injury curse. Tonight we'll look back on missed opportunity as the fine margins of then and now mean with 2 games to go, we now require the help of others to achieve our dreams. We'll also chat injuries, outside interference, realistic chances and discuss the future direction should the Stags fail to clinch that top 7 finish. As always, we value and encourage your comments, questions and opinions in the show's live feed. So come along and have your say on your team on the show for the fans, by the fans. This is the Mansfield Matters Podcast, proud to be part of the talkSPORT Fan Network. Hello, good evening and welcome to the Mansfield Matters Podcast. It's the show for the fans, by the fans. Hope that you're all doing all right and having a fantastic week and aren't too dampened by the results at home to Leyton Orient. Get in the comments, have your say on your team. What did you think of the result? Have Mansfield blown the playoffs or is it all still to play for? We've got plenty to talk about tonight and plenty of people joining us to do it as well. So let's say hello, good evening and welcome to Mr. Clive Parkin.
Good evening, Craig.
And we'll also be joined later on by Mr. Alan Wilson. And also in the interim, as Nathan is still in Spain, as Cam is holding the baby, or the toddler, should I say, tonight, and Nick is still working on sorting his garage out after his house move, I'm delighted to say that we've opened up the phone lines this evening to be joined by a gentleman who always has a chat with me on a home game and has been a long-time viewer of the Mansfield Matters podcast. His name is Jim Evans. Good evening, Jim.
Good evening, Craig. Good evening, everybody.
Good.
Nice to be on the show.
Yeah, thanks so much for giving up your time and joining us. Now, you were supposed to be on the visual panel tonight, but as you explained to me the first time when you messaged us and said, I'd love to be on the podcast, but I knew what was coming. It's I either don't have a laptop or I'm rubbish with technology and I've got an old phone. And that's exactly what happened, isn't it?
Yeah, rubbish with technology, old phone and no laptop. Yeah, that's 3 ticks there, so...
Who knows? We might get you into the modern age. If Clive can do it, anyone can do it. But we've got you on the phone. We've got your little voice on the screen as well, so people know that you're speaking. So there are 3 of us tonight, despite there being only 2 of us on screen so far. We'll come to you in just a second, Jim. Obviously, you can hear everything that Clive's saying, but we'll just test it once again. Clive, if you'd like to say hello to Jim.
Good evening, Jim. Not seen you since we bumped into you in the car park before the game.
Good evening, Clive. You okay?
Yeah, not bad.
And just by in replying without me saying anything, I know it all works. Right, the technology is sorted. Show me about the Stags, Clive.
I have no complaints about the result at all. They were a far better team than we, and they deserved to win. But having said that, what we witnessed against Leyton Orient was a knackered scraping of the barrel of our team, doing the very best they could under the circumstances.
Yeah, it was a very difficult night for us. Obviously, results-wise, it was what it was. I think most people would have predicted that beforehand anyway. We'll delve into the crux of why later on. Adam's just dropped us a comment as well. We'll talk about that once Alan gets here later, because Clive noticed it as well. So we'll talk about Alan's little faux pas later on. And as always, if you guys at home are watching the live feed and you want to have your say, get involved in the comments now. Jim, I'm going to come to you. Obviously, we were chatting before Tuesday night's game and we were saying if we can win this or if we can get a draw, it'll give us some belief. But I think in our heart of hearts, we knew that even though they'd been crowned champions a couple of days before, it was still going to be a tough night on the Orient Express.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping that they'd wrapped up promotion, they'd wrapped up the title, that the flip-flops would be on, but I think even in third gear, I think they were just too much for us. And they just ran rings around us, really, didn't they? It reminded me of the last game of last season when Forest Green came and they'd already been promoted. I mean, they were still fighting for the title that day, but they just cut us to ribbons at will. And it reminded me a bit of that.
It's a difficult one to ponder over, Clive, isn't it? Because if we'd have had a fully fit squad, I think it'd have been a completely different game. But we are so much down to the bare bones now that the lineup picks itself. It's basically put your hands up if you can manage 60 minutes, and we'll try and manage it as best we can. So in the circumstances, a 2-1 defeat actually isn't too hard to take.
I think even if we hadn't got this monstrous injury problem, we'd have still had to work really hard to get anything out of the game. And I think they're champions for a reason, and that is that they consistently played well throughout the year. They must have had injuries along the way, like everybody else. I think we've had more than we deserve. But no complaints about the result. I thought they were worthy winners, and I have to say that, like Jim, I remember the last game of last season when we played Forest Green. And if you're a good team and have performed at a high level all season, you're not going to take your foot off the throttle. You're going to want to win every game, and we would in that situation, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely, we would.
I just turn your mic up a little bit.
I think yours is. I think it's because I moved it away from my mouth a little bit. It's a really dodgy microphone, I'm afraid. Had to go with a little bit of a shambles kit tonight because we've got the phone call going on and everything. I'm still waiting for the delivery of a new microphone. When will that sponsorship money come in? Hopefully one of these days. Stag's chat in the comments says it will end the Mansfield Town way on the edge of our seat with Mansfield, who will make the playoffs. That is the $1 million question, isn't it, that we're asking tonight, Jim? Will Mansfield Town make the playoffs? My head of heads and my heart of hearts says it's going to be an agonising final day of the campaign, where we're going to need other results to go our way. We'll do our job, but other results will conspire against, and I think we will just miss out.
Well, I'm looking at the fixtures. I wouldn't be surprised if we're just scraping them, But if we do, even if we do, I don't think we're going to do anything in them. If I'm completely honest with you, I even think we'll beat Harrogate on Saturday. Our bogey team. But I just think we've got that many injuries at the moment. We're not in fantastic form, even though we had that unbeaten run. And I just think we're going to be coming up against cranked up good sides in the playoffs. And my gut says it's not going to happen this year, if I'm quite honest.
Clive, what's yours saying? Is your head saying no, but your heart saying yes, or vice versa?
With the least favourites to take that last berth, I think we have to start by beating Harrogate. Get 3 points from Harrogate. We're in a situation where it all just swing on the last game, I think, and the fixtures could well work out for us. But I'm with Jim. I don't think we thoroughly deserve to be in that group. I think we've allowed ourselves to lose too many points for all sorts of reasons. I'd be delighted if we are, but again, if we find ourselves in the gang of 4, anything can happen. But we don't appear to be the best equipped squad going into that situation. Even though by the time the playoffs start, we should have had a couple of people back off the injury bench. But it strikes me that we get injured anyway. We get injured when we're no game on. So we have a situation now where our most competent, most reliable, and most robust player got injured last week. It's such a shame, really. But I have to say, we've been critical of certain players over the season, and certainly of the squad's overall attitude on occasions. But in this last couple of games, they've shown absolute heart. They've worked their guts out to try and get something from a very difficult set of circumstances. And there's nobody I would be critical of in the squad at the moment. They're all having to do what they've got to do, not necessarily playing where they're best able to play. And I don't think he would have been injured had he been playing on the right hand side of the park.
Yeah, me neither. I think
he was always trying to get it on his favourite foot, and I think that's what created the problem down where he got injured down there as much as anything. But these things happen.
Yeah.
He's required to play where he's required to play. You could argue that it's the players that haven't come back off the injury list that have put him in that position.
Yeah, I think so. It's a really, really tough one. I'm just going to ask you, Clive, if you can just exit and come back in. It's just gone really crackly in my headphones when you were talking. So I think you're fine for everybody else, but I think it's just me. So it just might be my end. So we'll get Clive back in just a second. As always, keep your comments coming in. Simon says Saturday was a match too far for the depleted squad. I think you might have meant Tuesday. Can't fault the players' efforts up against a very good team with fresh legs. Twists and turns to go top with a few playing each other, says Adam. But then we can shoot ourselves in the foot. I want Bradford to choke. I think it wasn't just me. I think it was Clive's connection. So we'll hopefully try again. Is he there? Let's try again. I think he's just missed about some wires. Hello.
Hang on.
There he is. That's better. That's a lot better. I don't know.
Better. Yeah, I can hear him better.
How's that?
Oh, that's better. I don't know what you've done, but it's miles better.
Right. Were you talking to me?
Yeah, it's sounding better. There we go. Touch wood, connection problems are out of the way, so we're all good. You were talking about Elliot Hewitt. We'll come to that in just a second because we've just had another man pop into the waiting room. So, Jim, shall we admit the man in the waiting room?
Yeah, go for it.
Clive, should we admit him?
Yes, as long as he's sure where he is.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's your man of the match. It's Mr. Alan Wilson. I've just kicked him out by mistake.
Good evening, Craig, Clive, everybody. Good evening.
How are you?
Hi, Alan.
I'm all right. All right. How are we doing? Are you okay?
Very good, mate. We've got Jim on the phone with us tonight to make up a panel of four. So lots of different voices talking this evening. But before we delve into anything, Alan, we've got to address one thing in the room, haven't we, Clive? We were talking about it before the show. We've had a couple of comments about it. Let's get it out of the way, and then we can talk football.
I couldn't believe it, and I still don't believe it happened. I think someone's having a joke with me. But they told me at some point, you announced that they were bringing on some substitutes from Newport County.
No, unless you've got, unbeknown to me. If that's the case, unbeknown to me.
Well, clearly, if it was true, it would have been unbeknown to you because you wouldn't knowingly announce substitutes from Newport County at a game involving Lake Norient. But I just think it's yet another sign of old age, Alan.
Is that it? Well, if I did, I can only apologise. I thought you were referring to the little moment's pause before I did the man of the match.
Oh, we were going to come to that.
Yeah, the fortnight between announcing 24 and Alfie Kilgore, yeah.
I really
realised
that you're happening with Stuart, because I normally who's got the man of the match, and I'll say, next time ball goes out after 90, 92, whatever, but it didn't come in till late. The subs were going on, and so I realised that I hadn't texted Stuart in time. So I was just trying to give him that second or two just to put it up on the screen. But, it is what it is. It made the crowd laugh.
Listen, from the man who is famed for has been exchanged, I think it's a new one in the life of Alan Wilson, and I'm all for it. And do you know what? That was the most entertaining part of Tuesday night, Alan, wasn't it?
Was it? I'm going to say, I was a bit disappointed. I thought I was thinking of a word or a phrase before I came on, and it's completely gone now since I've rushed on to get back. But we sent to run out of steam, shall we say?
Yes,
that we did.
Yeah, we certainly did. Jim, obviously in that game against Leyton Orient, we had that thing, didn't we, at the start, of hope. We had that little thing of getting that goal early doors, and it gave us that little bit of hope. But I think by now we should all realise that it's the hope that kills you, isn't it?
It is, yeah, it is. I think we get a bit carried away with our expectations. I think we all seem to think we should be winning the league every year. But yeah, I mean, we started really brightly with the goal from DKD, and we think go on and get that second one. But I think reality kicked in, and we realised we were playing the best team in the league, and it just wasn't to be.
They had a bit of luck though, Jim, didn't they? I mean, the first goal they scored came off the post. It could have gone anywhere, but it went to one of their players. All I would say is he was alert and we weren't.
I was about to say, yeah.
But that's exactly what happened with the penalty the previous week, wasn't it? They were alert and we weren't, and they managed to get a goal that had been saved as a penalty. So there's lessons in there, I think.
There are.
Didn't you think they were quicker than us, though?
Yes.
A lot quicker than us.
They were quicker on their feet and quicker in thought, I thought. But I'm not having a go at our team over this at all. I just think we were such a threadbare, knackered up squad that we did as much as we could possibly have done in the day. No lack of effort at all.
No, not at all. I think that's just it, isn't it? People are just tired now, and they've been running on empty for the last few weeks, and it's just there's only so long you can run on empty and adrenaline. There's a limit, and when you come up against a team like that, it's just there's going to be one outcome really.
We've had no luck at all this season. Let's be clear about it. We've had some really shoddy officials, and I want to talk about the late night official as well in a bit. But we've had some shoddy officials. We've had some bad luck. We've had more than our share of injuries. And we've had situations that should be 50-50, but they never are. They are 90-10s against us. You know, the luck of getting the second ball, it's just not happened for us all season. Then, of course, you throw in the injuries and the some of the dubious recruitment we did earlier in the season. And I'll say this, had we had Alfie Kilgore from the beginning of the season, I don't think we'd have been in this problem.
That's exactly why I named this week's episode The Fine Margins of Then and Now, because it really is those fine margins. You look at the Kilgore situation, when he comes in January, it says, oh, I nearly signed in the summer. Same with Callum Johnson. It's those little differences which do make a huge difference in the bigger picture of things. But you can't do anything about it now with 2 games to go. You are where you are, you've got where you've got, and you have to learn from it next season. That's the biggest thing for me, Alan, that I hope, is that we do learn from it for next season. If we go after a player in the summer and they turn us down and they go for another move, let's not go after them again in January. They've turned us down once, bugger them off. All right, I hold my hands up and say Kilgore and Johnson. Johnson's still got a lot more to give, I think, but certainly Kilgore has been a fantastic asset for us. So he's the anomaly in terms of rechasing that target. But if you've got to, I think, for me, if it costs you that extra, few quid, that extra 2 or 3% in terms of a wage, then it's worth spending, because it could be the difference between promotion and heartbreak.
Can I just jump in, Craig? Can I just say, yes, we've had a lot of injuries. Obviously, that's all plain to see. But I just still feel the squad is just too damn small. I mean, you look at Northampton, when we played them and they beat us 1-0 a few weeks ago, they had more players out than we did. And they're still in their second, because they've got a squad big enough to anticipate the absences. And I just think it cost us last season at times, and it's the same again. I don't think we have learnt this season with the squad size. It's just too damn small.
Alan, what's your response to that? And then we'll touch upon my point.
Well, Matt, to go back to what you said about Callum Johnson, it wasn't till probably, I don't know, last week or maybe the week before that I'd heard that he can play at left back. Now, if that's the case, I would like to have seen Callum Johnson play at left back and keep Elliot Hewitt where it'd been unbelievable all season. Admitted, you have to chop and change, but I didn't realise that Callum Johnson can play left back. That was my only thought from the other night, put him there, leave Elliot where he is. And I mean, obviously, with hindsight, Elliot probably wouldn't have been injured now. But, that's another story.
Yeah, especially with the left back thing, with the whole, Riley Harbottle can play there as well, but that's another thing Riley Harbottle and Will Swan to touch upon. Clive, I just want to go back to what I was saying a minute ago about, pushing those extra 2 or 3% in the summer transfer window. Regardless of what we do this season, we'll come back to that shortly. But next season, if we're going to learn from anything from this one, it's to push that extra little bit harder and go that 2 or 3% more to secure these signings, to make those thin differences, which are the differences. Yeah,
I mean, we don't have the financial numbers to look at, and the club has to run its business in the way it thinks fit. And I think Clough has been given the mandate to operate within a fairly strict budget. That's going to constrain the number of players we've got. I agree with Jim to a point that we needed a few more players than we've actually got, but the challenge then as a manager is, what do you do with the players that aren't getting the regular game? Because there isn't a reserve league for them to play in. And you'll end up trying to psychologically manage your squad rather than managing your squad to play football. And I think But having said that, no one, I don't mean that anybody could have expected us to have up to 10 key players injured at any one time. If there's a bright light in all this, I think it's Lewis Reed looked good when he played. And he obviously wasn't fully fit, and he'll take a couple of games to get back to fitness. But if we are magically in the playoffs, he could be really key, I think.
Yeah, he played really well when he came on. Them 40-yard cross field passes, straight to the person who intended it to be. It looked really good. But why do we keep, passing across? We were a goal down. We needed a draw at least. So why don't we just,
they were doing their job. They were doing their job, mate. They were just blocking opportunities, and they did it successfully.
Yeah, but Clive, when you keep playing it across the back and not, chancing one forward, it's just a bit mind blowing at times.
I think it is one of those differences between an ordinary side and a really successful side. It's how they can penetrate from that defensive midfield structure into an attacking zone. You remember we got turned over by Swindon earlier in the season at our ground, 5-2, and that's because they had someone who could thread a diagonal pass to a winger.
His name was Louis Reed. His name was Louis Reed.
Absolutely, and of course we get Louis Reed and then get him injured straight away. So that's the bad luck bit again, isn't it?
Yeah, typical Mansfield. Jim, do you want to jump in on that for a second?
The diagonal ball. Well, it's exactly what undid us at Wembley, isn't it? Let's face it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd take on Clive's points about Lewis Reed. He looks the kind of player to me. He doesn't really have to be that fit to be effective. He just needs to sit there, a bit like Jan Molby style, as people are old enough to remember from the 80s, and just get the ball and spray it. But I think our problem for me is at the business end of the pitch, at the attacking end. We had chances to get that equaliser. We really did, and the 1-2 particularly. And I think even though we're top scorers in the league this season, I don't know how, because it doesn't feel like we should be. But our chance to conversion ratio must be shocking, because we're just so wasteful. And I just think in the tight games, when you're up against the teams who can defend and you get one or two chances, we need to be ruthless with these chances, and I think that costs us as well.
We can do it, Jim. We scored 4 from 5 chances down at Swindon.
Yeah, I mean, it's good.
On our day. But again, we are top scorers. It doesn't feel like it because we've had too many disappointments behind us. Too many goals being shipped behind the scoreline. So
it's cost, isn't it? It's been able to do it week after week, score 2 out of 4, rather than like Rhys Oates on his day, he looks Ballon d'Or, doesn't he? But then other times, he'll go.
He's not been at his best all season, I don't think.
No.
I mean, take the serious injury absences aside. When he was playing this year, he's not a patch on what he was the previous season, in my opinion.
No, not often. I think we're crying out, and we have been for a while now, just a ruthless cutting edge who we can rely on. You look at the top scorers chart for League Two. I don't think, where's our top player? There's
Danny Johnson.
Yeah, and he's barely kicked a ball for us. So I just think that would have made a big difference for me, a goal scorer, because we're just so wasteful. We create chance after chance.
Yeah.
But we just, in those tight games where you just need somebody to be that difference, it's just, that would really have been the difference for me.
Let's delve into some more comments. Keep them coming in tonight. Lots of discussion to be had. If you're watching the live feed, feel free to do so. If you listen to the audio version of this, then come and join us. Not got many podcasts left of this season, but you're always welcome to come and join us. Make sure you've got your notifications on to find out when we're next going to be live. Richard says, thought some players were looking really tired and not firing. Aikens looked a bit washed out, felt the injuries were really starting to take their toll. Sarah says, on a positive note, shots from Dunn made to stun. Alan, what do you make of that one?
Yeah, very good. 10 out of 10 for that one.
Yeah, it gets the Alan Wilson seal of approval. That's what matters. Adam says the January transfer window was clever business. Then they got crocked in one half of a match or several matches. Simon says players seem too scared to shoot in injury time. We constantly struggle against pace. Swindon, Salford, Orient, and Adam also adds forward passes to Oates and Swan, who run on to is the difference. Everything left and right to be crossed in when only Lucas is in the middle and other strikers stretched out on the other flank is not good enough. Has Danny Johnson gone AWOL or really injured, or really injured? or with a bad attitude. Johnson one's not worth discussing, but all I'll say is, like I said to you before the game, Jim, isn't it? If you're Danny Johnson at this stage of the season, your contract's up, and you're thinking, I've barely played for this club since January. I'm not risking myself. Everyone else is getting injured. I'm not risking myself with an injury now. So my little injury may become a little bit bigger than what it is. Fabricating the truth.
Absolutely, he's got his own situation to think about, which is fair enough. He's not a Stags fan, is he? It's his job, and the way he's, some people might say he's been treated at times. He's probably, his mind's elsewhere, isn't it? He can't really fault him for that now. He's one of many sort of strikers and players we seem to have not really given a fair crack to. For me, I'll go back to Andy Cook. He's his top scorer in League Two, and I don't think he got a fair crack either.
Well, the stat is, without his goals, Bradford would probably be relegated, because he's scored. Yeah. I think there's a Bradford fan who works for me, and I think he was telling me something around that Andy Cook's got something around 85-87% of their goals this season, which is just absolutely phenomenal. It really does show what a difference that one player can make, and how you can build a style around that. This is not Bradford banter, though. This is Mansfield Matters, so we'll bring it back to the case in point, Alan. And that is, of course, Tuesday night at home to Leyton Orient. And hats off to whoever organised it. All right, they could have done us a favour in not being bothered to play, because we did give them a guard of honour. We did give them a champion sign. We did give them a nice round of applause and everything. They just didn't get the other part of the memo, did they? They didn't get the other side of the deal.
Well, they did for the first 10 minutes. I'm going to say, I've always alluded to getting that first goal is so important for Mansfield to move on and play well. But it's like, I think it was Simon said in the comments, Salford, Swindon, Leyton Orient, they all play with pace. And it seems to be the undoing of the Stags. Whether it's that threaded through ball that Clive was on about, anybody with pace seems to be our undoing, I'm afraid.
Well, in our situation, Alan, the only players we've got that possess pace are Oakes when he's fit, Swan when he's fit, and Hewitt when he's allowed to play down the right-hand side of the park.
And don't forget Barry.
Barry hasn't got any pace anymore.
Barry.
He's an intelligent player that can move about park successfully, but he hasn't got that raw pace.
No, Barry can shift, Clive. I disagree with you there. Barry can shift.
I'm glad you said shift. Richard in the comments says, I feel that the defence has cost us this season rather than goals scored. We are not learning defensively from our mistakes. When Pym saved the penalty against Grimsby, no Stags player reacted. When the Orient shot hit the post, no Stags player reacted. Twice in 4 games, we haven't reacted quick enough. Basic defending. Jim, what's your thoughts on that?
I think it's things they teach you at school, isn't it? Don't stop, go to the last whistle and all that. Things like that, penalties especially. It's a set piece, isn't it? Everybody runs in it for the rebound, don't they? And it's basic things. And picking up what they were talking about before about pace, I think you can have all the pace in the world. What's been noticeable for me this season is that there's no movement. Everybody's so static. People at perch and the fullbacks are getting the ball, and nobody's moving, and they're sticking their hands in the air as if to say who wants it, and nobody's making a run for it.
Yeah,
you don't always have to be lightning quick. Just engage the brain and exploit space.
It is.
The fact was that even when they were down to 10 players, we didn't have any space, so we weren't taking advantage of the extra player, and they were pressed too much by it.
But the space must have been there, mustn't it? Somewhere. If we, moved and probed, but all season it's been too static for me.
Alan, is the problem on Tuesday the fact that either A, we just ran completely out of energy and everything took its toll, or B, we didn't react enough? Because for me, I was screaming in my head when they went down to 10 men to get the subs on, just to make the changes and gamble. I get it. If it's in October and you've got all season to go, you don't want to risk those players if you're in that injury plight. But with 3 games to go, with it being the game in hand, that game at that point was there for the taking. And for me, we failed to react again.
Well, Libby probably agrees with you there. Yeah, but it's like 50-50. Do you or don't you? You know, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But I do agree that, you know, when they went down to 10, we didn't seem to exploit them as much as I would hoped we would have done. I can say that much.
In the
I think Clough is damned if he does and damned if he doesn't at the moment.
That's another discussion for another time, I think. Adam in the comments says DKD had pace and waited for the foul and go and get a shot off. Lots of people I'm seeing on social media and whom I'm having conversations with just talking about the frustration of wanting to walk the ball into the back of the net all the time. But, you know, we can't do anything about it now. We have got 2 games left to go, and it's only those games wondering a little bit more. Final point from Tuesday and reflective point from Marie, who says, wondering why we still have all 11 defending corners, leaving the only way to clear is it hoof it up the pitch and we're too slow to push out. Oates is not enough to chase the long balls from his own penalty box. Common sense tells you to leave 1 back and they leave 2. Badly needed a goal on Tuesday, and it's ping pong along the back line and to Pim. They're all knackered by half time. Certain decisions. I think Maria has definitely got a point there, Alan.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, Marie. Yeah, definitely. I'm going to say it because if you leave a player up, like she said, you know, they normally leave 2 back, or if you leave 2 up, they leave 3 back. You know, but it's not the way that Nigel likes to do things, and you know, it's one of those things, I'm afraid.
Yeah, right. So that's enough gripes about Clough for now, and our lack of creativity and instinct in front of goal. Clive, you know, you on your name tag tonight, nobody can see it because we've got different graphics on. So do you want to, with having Jim on the phone, we have the little voice tag, so the name graphics go off. So do you want to tell people what your name is on the little name banner tonight?
Yeah, it's an allusion to the Trevor Kettle scale of efficiency. I judge referees now on the Trevor Kettle scale, and the more Kettles I award, the worse the performance of that official. Trevor Kettle being a notable shitty referee that we've had, and so I have a scale of 1 to 5, and the scale was all wrong. For this game, I had to award a 9.5 Kettles for this. I don't know what the chap's name is, but he was the worst referee I have ever witnessed at Philville in my time watching Mansfield Town play, and he lost the game in the first 3 or 4 minutes, in my opinion.
Oh, the
booking for Wallace was completely wrong, absolutely wrong. I think he got the sending off right. But beyond that, I mean, the guy was a clown, an absolute clown. And, you know, there's no surprise that nearly half the ground was singing "You Don't Know What You're Doing" at some point, because he clearly didn't know what he was doing. Anyway, enough of that. He's probably a very nice person.
Yes, but he still scores 10 out of 5 on the Kettle scale. I like it very much indeed. Alan Wilson, I've got one very specific question for you to just tick off something in my mind from Tuesday, and then we can have a break and move on to other factors. And that is, were they forced into a change before the game? Because I noticed their goalkeeper, Lawrence Vigouroux, was named on the team.
Vigouroux went down, didn't he? And we were saying that. There were quite a few of us stood around and watching him. And I said, oh, you know, it'll probably be a ploy or something. But yes, it was injured. And that's why the sergeant, I think his name. But I don't know who they actually put back on the bench to replace him. I don't know whether they did.
No, I don't know.
I didn't get any, mentions of it, but yes, he was replaced.
Did you just have to figure that out by shirt number, or did somebody have a word in your ear?
No, I figured it out by shirt number.
Alan Wilson, the absolute genius that is the Mansfield Town PA announcer. And the man of the match, sponsored by whoever it was number 24... Alfie Kilgore. Welcome back to the Mansfield Matters Podcast, the show for the fans by the fans. Hope you're having a nice time with us tonight. As always, come and get your comments in on the show for the fans, by the fans. We're joined on the panel tonight by Clive Parkin. Hello.
Hiya.
Mr. Alan Wilson. Hello.
Good evening.
And on the phone by Stags fan Jim Evans. Hello.
Hello.
Just in case in that brief 10 seconds break, you forgot who was on the podcast. And I'm Craig. Nice to meet you. You should know this by now. We're on Series 6, Episode 46. Come on. If you don't know who we are by now, you never are. Right.
Craig, before we go any further, can I just tell you that last night I couldn't sleep very well. So I came downstairs and switched the television on and went onto Sky. And there was the match, they were televising the League Two playoff final between Coventry City and Exeter City. The Coventry won and got promoted, and Exeter for the second season running didn't. I mean, appeared at Wembley. And in the Exeter side, in goals was Christy Pym, and they had Mr. Boateng.
Yes.
Playing for him. Although I have to say that Boateng was completely anonymous in that game. I think he was
shock
marked out of the game completely. But Pimmy had some saves to make, but he did concede 3 goals, and 2 of the goals were the sort of goals we've seen at Field Mill.
Well, there you go. A little bit of midnight homework that Clive conducted.
I stumble across these things in my inability to sleep.
That should. For a moment, I thought you were going to say that I stumbled across the Channel 4 show Celebrity Hunted, and then I'd have listened to the podcast, Hunted Podcast, at Hunted Pod, if you're interested in all that sort of thing. Moving on. Right. Right, let's move on to outside influences, Alan. Obviously, Will Swan and Riley Harbottle on loan from Nottingham Forest, and something occurred to me the other day. This could well be me being cynical, but I think there is something in this. Because they are on loan from another club, when it comes to injuries and monitoring those injuries, the majority of the treatment and the treatment plan is actually put together by the parent club. So they have a bigger say, or at least a say, on how long someone can play or whether or not they are declared fit to play. Because Will Swan comes on and looks really, really sharp, and everyone's going, this is what we're missing, but it's too little, too late. Have the medical team at Nottingham Forest said he's only good for half an hour? And realistically, our medical team might be going, nah, he's all right for an hour, or he's all right to start. Are those outside influences maybe playing a little part, or is that me being cynical, Craig, again?
I would imagine it's you being, to a certain degree, it's being cynical, Craig, again. But they might have the last say. You might be right, Craig. Who knows? I mean, Swan gave it all he got when he came on. Now, here, how long was he on for? 10, 15 minutes, whatever it was, 10 minutes. But, he certainly gave full throttle to that 10 minutes. Perhaps that's all he could do. I mean, we'll never know. We'll never know, this, whether they say, it can only do so much or whatever, because he was on the bench last week, but didn't come on, for whatever reason. You've got to a certain degree, you've got to abide by what the club says, because as we all know, they are in the Premier League.
If that was the case, though, Clive, and you were Nigel Clough, would you not be thinking with 3 games to go, I actually don't give a shit what they say? If my team, who I trust and I work with, every single day, are saying that he's fit enough to play and that he can get through 70 minutes as opposed to 20 or 30, would you be inclined to just sort of maybe bend the rules a little bit and do what you want to do rather than be governed by those potential outside sources?
I suppose there's a balance, isn't there? If Mansfield Town Football Club wants to have benefit of association with Nottingham Forest in future seasons, what they don't want to do is bugger it up with the players we've got on loan now. Having said that, I'm perhaps a bit naive, but if I was Clough, I wouldn't want to take loan players on if there were too many conditions attached to their involvement. You have to trust the club that's taking the player forward. And I think there's a conditionality around the Pym thing. That's why we have that. And I think if Forest are going to continue to micromanage these 2 players, I wouldn't have wanted them on the squad if I'd known about that and I was Clough. But I'm probably being naive. I don't know.
I think Clive might have a little bit of a point with that, Jim, because you do look at the Pym situation and you do wonder whether it's a contractual thing that he has to play as part of his loan deal. We certainly had it last season with Matty Longstaff when he came on loan from Newcastle United, and we've had it previously with other players as well that have been loaned to us that on the condition that if they're deemed fit, they have to play. They have to play X amount of games.
Yeah, I mean, we're not privy to all the sort of contractual terms, are we? But I'd have thought, there's probably a standard as regards whether he's fit or not. That'd be probably pretty standard, throughout all professional clubs. I wouldn't have thought there'd be much difference between clubs there. But what my thing would be around bending the rules. I'd have thought it wouldn't be in your interest to take a chance on players, because football's it's a small village, isn't it? If you take a chance with a player that's not even yours and they get injured and they're out for a long time, it won't just be Forest who know about it. Everyone will know about it, and no one will loan to you again. And I think you've got to look at it from that point of view. If you get a reputation for breaking players because you've rushed them back, then people are going to think twice before they loan to you.
Yeah, you are damned if you do, damned if you don't. I'm going to put this one to you, Clive. Simon's been in touch in the comments because I know that you have strong opinions on this, and I'm inclined to agree to a degree as well, actually. With all the injuries, Simon says, do we need to question our strength and conditioning coaches and methods? Every game we seem to lose at least one player to an injury. And like we've said previously on the podcast, Clive, and in various conversations with different people, we've never known a time in Mansfield Town's history where we are hit with so many injuries. And it has seemed to be a consistent theme of the Nigel Clough reign, hasn't it?
It has, and I have to say that as someone who knows nothing about physiotherapy and training professional athletes, I'm left with a layperson's opinion, is that I think they are either under fit or over fit. I know that sounds like I'm covering all bases there, but to me, I think you can be 101% taught as an athlete and very quickly snap something. And I think we've seen some injuries which weren't directly a result of an injury in the game. And I think that's possibly what I'm alluding to, but I have to say I don't know for sure. I'm more concerned about some of the recruitment we've made where the players have come with a reputation for being injured and having a background of injuries. And then we're surprised when they get injured. Louis Reed is one of them. Although, you have to take a chance on some of these people. Hartigan, for God's sake. Can anybody remember Hartigan playing for us?
I remember him popping his shoulder at Grimsby and saying to whoever was sat beside me at the time, which probably was you, to be fair, Clive, we ain't seen him again for a long time.
Well, he was our free kick specialist, of course. We've missed out on so many free kicks and superb corners because Hartigan hasn't played, I think. Anyway, I don't know the answers. I have an opinion that I think some of our training is too driven by performance stats rather than people's own individual physiology. I mean, in the past, there's been players, and somebody mentioned, Jim mentioned Jan Mulby earlier on, carry weight. I bet they carry it well, and they've got a wise head that they can work with a body which isn't 100% right. And I think our modern players, generally speaking, are much better physical specimens. But are they necessarily better footballers for it? Are they better, more resilient footballers for it?
I'll give you two prime examples using Mansfield Town's history, Alan. One, Matt Reed. Two, current example, Kieran Wallace.
Yeah,
and I mean that in the nicest way possible, because I think even he has admitted that he's on the slightly stockier side of what he should be for his age and his position, but he does it superbly well. And actually, since Christmas, since he's come in CDM, you can't argue with the results, and he will feel hard done by because of his booking on Tuesday.
Yeah, I felt very sorry for him on Tuesday because all he was doing was watching the ball. He'd got his eyes nowhere else whatsoever. He was watching the ball come down, and he ends up getting booked for it. And, it's hard done to the lad because he's had such a good run in the team, which is deserved, and he's proved his point by the more matches he's played, the better he's got.
He's not the most intelligent player. That's the thing. And I think I can understand why Clough would take him off at half time simply because he was likely to get a red at some point. He judged the referee right. I think the referee was probably going to want to waggle his red card in his direction at some point. But I wasn't a big fan of Wallace. I know Craig had much more respect for him than I did, but he's won me round. And provided the ball's coming at him, he's really good. I think where he lacks is that turnability, that ability to quickly go back and pick up balls that have escaped other players. Yeah. But and he's not the brightest sharpest knife in the drawer. There's no question about that. But give him the job to do that he's been doing this last couple of games, and he does it really well.
Yeah, that is the exact prime example of a robust footballer. I used to say it about Paul Digby, and people used to slag me off, and that used to be a running joke on the podcast. But I'm going to say it again. Kieran Wallace is a new Paul Digby. He is the anchor of our side, and I guarantee you this: I said anchor with an A. I guarantee when he's not playing, we will miss him. Big shout out for him to be playing left back on Saturday. Going to go to some more comments, then we're going to move on to a little bit of a slightly different topic. We're going to look at the fixtures to come. Ticking off the injury boxes and the comments. Richard says, I feel there are some underlying issues for so many players getting injured. I have questioned the training pitch as a potential issue with that one. Andy adds, injuries possibly reflect Clough's liking of smaller, neat, tidy footballers. If we had a few more robust bruisers like Kilgore, then perhaps we'd have less injury problems. Right, let's move on and have a look at the final couple of games. Jim, we were talking...
Faz Rawson.
Faz the traffic cone. Jim, we were talking before, earlier in the show about the final two games of the season, and we were talking about outside influences and what Mansfield's failure to do on Tuesday in terms of winning and getting back in the playoffs and putting it in their own hands has just put it in the hands of others. But if you look at the fixture list for this coming Saturday afternoon, so many of the teams in and around us play either each other or teams that can, that have either done it or seal promotion. It is absolutely wide open still, isn't it? It's really difficult to call. So actually, in some respects, losing on Tuesday night, as much as it hurt and as much as it puts a bit of pressure on the need for others, it is still on the table. It's not over.
Oh yeah, we're lucky, aren't we? Looking at the fixtures elsewhere on Saturday, someone somewhere is going to drop points. I think it's all for go to Carlisle.
Yeah,
so that's a tough away game. So yeah, I think we're lucky from that point of view. I mean, coming out of the ground on Tuesday, it was all doom and gloom, and everyone that's it, but now it's very much still on. We've obviously got to make sure we do our bit, but I think it'll go right to the last day. I think it'll go right to the last 20 minutes against Colchester. It will still be, on a knife edge, whether we do it or not.
I'm looking forward to going to Colchester this year because I think you're right. I think it's going to be the big game.
Yeah. I think we'll win Saturday. I really do. I think we're going to throw the absolute kitchen sink at it again. They're safe now, aren't they? So, I mean, obviously we said that about Leyton Orient. They won the league, but I think, Harrogate really have got nothing to... They just want the end of the season now. They're safe, that's it.
We hate Harrogate.
We hate Harrogate, but I think we'll beat them.
We do to beat them, aren't we? We do for it.
And they have before this season, so...
Let's delve into those fixtures a little bit, Alan, then, and have a little look and just sort of analyse those games and what it could potentially mean for those who are playing it. So, Leyton Orient, they play fourth place Stockport at home. So that's Leyton Orient's final home game of the season. And whilst many might think they've done it, they're champions, they're up, with it being their last home game of the season, they want to sign off as champions at home in style, and that's going to put a bit of onus on it. So Stockport aren't going to go there and get an easy afternoon like we did on Tuesday night. They're going to get exactly the same thing.
No, they'll get I would imagine they'll be presented with the trophy, so it'll be a, humdinger of a day for Leyton Orient. But just going back to what Jim said and what, probably yourself and Clive have said, if you just think about it, what did we think about the, saying, oh, Salford's got to go to Carlisle? I'm not cobwashing anything because me, I'm Mr. Positive. But, what did we think when we went to Carlisle? I thought, oh, now this is a really tough one. And 34 minutes in, we're 4-0 up. Swings and roundabouts, Craig. It's all still to play for. And I agree with Jim. I think it will come down to the last 20 minutes or so of the Colchester game, when things could get decided.
Being a pessimist, I have a real problem with that saying swings and roundabouts. Because if you stay on a roundabout too long, you get dizzy. And when you're on a swing, you have that awesome high until you get to the top, and then bang, gravity whips it away from you, and you go flying backwards. Clive, let's have a look at some more of those fixtures. We've said about Leyton Orient and Stockport. Also in and around us, Bradford in 7th, who are above us only on goal difference by 2. They go to Northampton. And Northampton on Saturday at home at Sixfields, if they win, they're promoted.
Yeah, that's probably the best game of the weekend, I think. The Northampton are capable of beating anybody, but Bradford are best on the road. So I think it's going to be a really interesting game, is that one. And of course, as we've said earlier in this podcast, it's all about Andy Cook. Get him out of the game. Northampton will win.
Yeah. The next one, of course, Jim, is we've mentioned the Carlisle and Salford game. That's in itself. The other big one for me is looking at the Stevenage game. Now, they don't play anybody in terms of in and around, as they play Grimsby in 11th, who, of course, season's over and done for them. They're dead rubbers. They're safe. They can't reach the playoffs. They've had a good first season back in the league. But, of course, Stevenage on Saturday at home also can, if results go their way, seal promotion themselves, having been in the top three all season. If Stevenage win and Stockport and Carlisle lose, they will be promoted. Even if Bradford win and Stevenage win, it won't matter because Bradford can't catch them mathematically. So a Stevenage win plus results elsewhere could mean they're promoted, which puts a lot on that game, doesn't it? Again, all of those those top three teams arguably have something to play for, Jim.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's good really because it helps because they're playing those teams around us in the playoffs. It does us a favour, doesn't it? But as a Stags fan, I'm not really too fussed about the top three now this season. It's gone for us. I'm just more worried about what Salford are going to do, and I suppose Bradford to a point. But
this is why I'm saying it, because it's those teams who we are mathematically close to are playing those top three sides. And what I'm saying about the Stevenage game is the fact that, Stockport can still catch them. Carlisle can still catch them if they slip up. So that gives another incentive to that game. So there is so much going on. There are so many cogs turning. There's so much pressure on every team. It's a pressure cooker now.
From a neutral's point of view, it's a good league to watch, isn't it? It's a good spectacle.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. And of course, just on that as well, with the placings, obviously we can't mathematically now go automatically. There's too much between us and Stevenage in third. So for me, Clive, I don't know whether this is pessimism or I think this is probably reality, to be honest, if we're really drilling into it and we're really looking at the factors. We're playing for 7th, and the only team we need to concern ourselves with, other than ourselves, is what Bradford do, because they're the ones with the game in hand, and they're the ones who have got the two toughest games, other than the Crew game in hand, of the season. They've got Northampton on Saturday, and then their final game of the season is the champions, Leyton Orient, at home, who likewise, with wanting to win at home on Saturday, will want to win away at Bradford to end the season on a high.
Yeah, it's making my head hurt. This I can't cope with it. But the only thing we should be concerned about is beating Harrogate, because unless we beat Harrogate, we can wave bye-bye to it all. And I think the final game of the season may well be pointless in that respect. But the league table is a very accurate description of how things have panned out. After 40-odd games, it tells a true story. And the fact is, we are on the fringe. We didn't intend to be. That wasn't the game plan, but we are. And the fact we still have a chance, despite everything that's gone on, gives me reason for optimism. Because if we take 6 points from the 2 games that's left, the chances are someone else is going to drop a few. And that just gives us a chance. And I'd like it to be, I'd like Bradford to drop away, I think, because they upset me. They're Billy Big Bollocks, aren't they, at the end of the day? But also everybody hates Salford, including me. So I don't know. I don't really care. When we get into the playoffs, there's going to be plenty of room for my pet hatreds.
Yeah, it's not when, it's if. Marie in the comments, Alan, I know you're going to put a positive spin on this because it's what you do, but you can't deny that she's right with this. We shouldn't have to look at others cocking up. 3 games in hand and only 1 point gained. Silly points lost throughout the season. If we fall short, it's not the impact of others. gaining points or whatever. It's the impact of us not being good enough.
100%.
Yeah, you can't argue with that. Top goal scorers in League Two, and we're fighting to scratch around for the 7th spot.
You can't. The only thing you can say is what other people have said in the past, and they will say for the next 2 games. It's just unbelievable that we're still hanging in there. We've got a chance with the injuries we've had, and that's about all you can say. Because other teams have had injuries, should I say, not injuries, and bigger squads, whatever, they've coped with it. But it's just one of those things.
On that note, Alan, the positive that comes out of all of what you've just said is in the last 10 games we've lost once, and we've lost once to the champions.
Yeah,
that's it. And we've had a ragbag squad to pick from. We've had players playing out of position. We've had players playing with broken legs. We've done incredibly well given the circumstances. We shouldn't have had to be in that position. That's another argument, but we are. And there's no reason why we can't revert back to not losing against Harrogate and Colchester.
Yes, there is. There is a reason that we
wants to say something here.
There is a reason, and his name is Elliot Hewitt, because without Hewitt, we can't do it. Fact.
Oh, another one, Craig. Very good. Without Hewitt, we can't do it.
Come on, give me one for Hartigan then.
Oh, look, it's Anthony Hartigan. Oh, what a shock. We're a Partigan.
Oh, no.
He's a year older. He's a year older with a mended shoulder.
Oh, no.
I don't know. We'll work on that. Whilst we think about that, Jim, I'm going to come to you first as we're about to say goodbye, and that is, of course, to look at... like Nigel Clough says, one game at a time, so we look solely at Harrogate, and it's time to do podcast predictions. As the guest on tonight's show, you know how podcast predictions works by now. Give us your prediction for Saturday afternoon at home to Harrogate, a side who, statistically, we've never beaten. Jim, what's your prediction?
I think it's going to be an absolute tooth-pulling 2-1 win. An absolute small fest. I think first goal in the 30th minute.
Okay, well, there you go. That's Jim's prediction. Let's check in with the podcast prediction table. A little bit of movement this week. In 10th place, it's Roger. 9th is Adam, 1 point ahead. JS is in 8th. Then it's Nathan. Who's he? In 7th. Joint 5th, Cam and Kathy on 44 points apiece. Steve Naden is in 4th on 46. And the top 3 is Ben, our podcast predictions guru, on 47. And then, a little bit like League Two, we have a runaway leader in Clive Parkin on 57 points. In second place, Alan Wilson on 48. So, Alan, as you're in second, I'm going to let you go first this time. Harrogate at home, Mr. Optimism himself.
Mansfield Town 3, Harrogate Town 0. 17th minute.
Clive, the leader of the pack.
Mansfield Town 3, Harrogate 1.
Oh.
8th minute.
Oh.
Okay. My heart is saying go for a win.
Come on, Craig. You can do it. Come on.
But my head is saying that we are going to continue our poor streak against Harrogate. It's going to be all over on Saturday. We're going to lose 2-0. Without Hewitt, we can't do it. The first goal, by the way, will come in the 2nd minute. They're going to come out of the traps and we're going to be like, gone, and our heads will just implode. I hope that I'm wrong. If anything, I'm doing reverse psychology now. I'm playing Nathan's trick. Please go and prove me wrong. But I just don't feel it. Without Hewitt, we can't do it. If you want to play along with podcast predictions, you can. The link that you need is in the description. You must do it no later than 1 hour and 1 minute before kickoff on Saturday. And
can I just say that Lewis Reed is all we need?
I wanted to come up with something for Wallace, but I'm not going to do. Jim, thanks so much for joining us on the Mansfield Matters podcast tonight. This is your opportunity to have the final word. Andy says in the comments, doom and gloom, Craig. Come on, 6 series in, you should know that I am Mr. Pessimism by now. It's all reverse psychology. I don't mean it in my heart, but my head tells the truth. Jim, final word from you. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. 2 games to go. It's not quite in our hands, but in your heart of hearts, can the Stags achieve a playoff finish for the 2nd season in a row?
No, absolutely, yeah. As I tell my 10-year-old son, just concentrate on doing the next thing well on a football pitch. But it's just a lottery, innit? We'll see.
Oh, I so want to pick that apart. But I'm not going to do, because you've been the guest and you've been fantastic for us tonight. So I'm not going to do. Jim, thanks so much for joining us, mate. Will you come on again, yeah?
But of course I will, yeah. Enjoyed it, yeah.
Top man. Thanks so much for having us, for joining us tonight. That's Jim, everybody. Say bye to Jim.
Bye to Jim.
Yeah, guys. See you soon.
There you go. He's gone. Thanks.
Can I just say as well, without Clark, we have no Bark.
Oh, for God's sake, Alan, come on. You know you. Do you know what? I'm gonna jump in. I'm gonna throw one in. He's taken a bit of stick lately. We spoke about him earlier in the show, but without Christy Pym, our chances, do they look dim? Not.
Or slim.
You had to go and steal it, didn't you? You had to go and steal my thunder. Do you know what? Alan Wilson out. Bring back Jim. Where's Nathan when I need him? Shocking. Yeah. As always, thanks for your company tonight, fellas. We'll see.
Can I just say, Craig, I was a little bit uncomfortable with Jim tonight. I thought he brought too much sanity to the whole thing.
Well, we do need that every now and again. As always, if you want to come on the Mansfield Matters podcast, do get in touch via all things social media. We'd love to have you on. We always like having extra voices here and there. Gentlemen, I have a bit of a potential proposal. We'll talk about this more in the group chat next week. But of course, next week, it's the final game of the season. And you know what? I'm done with webcams. I'm done with faulty microphones. I'm done with headsets. I think we all need to be in the same room. We've not done a podcast at my new house yet. I've been here for 4 months. Boys, it's time to get your mugs ready. It's time to come round. See you next week in person.
Depending on the day, definitely.
We'll make it work for Alan Wilson. And I guarantee this, Nathan still won't be here. We'll sort that out next time. Right, we're off. Thanks so much for joining us. And you know what? For all the pessimistic talk, for all the head-rolling heart, it's irrelevant. Do you know why? Because at the end of the day, regardless of whether it's in our hands or not, Mansfield will always matter. Got the catchphrase in. Good night. Well, that's all we've got time for on this week's Mansfield Matters podcast. My thanks, as always, to the panel and, of course, to you guys at home. Whether you've been watching or listening, your interaction is always welcome here on the Mansfield Matters podcast. Don't forget to get involved in the podcast predictions game. The link that you need is in the description. And you must do it no later than 1 hour and 1 minute before kick-off on Saturday afternoon. The Stags face Harrogate Town then at One Call Stadium. Can they get a victory against a side that in the last few seasons have become their bogey side? And can Mansfield keep that playoff dream alive? Join us next week to reflect on that as we go into the final weekend of the season with one word in our minds and hearts. It's a simple one. It's got 4 letters. Hope. Good night.